For the next 31 days on the FCPA Compliance Report, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Consistency as a compliance best practice. The 2023 ECCP emphasized the need for corporate compliance function to ensure both consistency and fairness, not only in monitoring investigations, but also in monitoring the resulting discipline. One of the ways that 2023 ECCP emphasized this was through the tracking of investigations and the discipline that might come out of any such investigations. One of the challenges companies have is facts and circumstances are always different in every investigation. This makes it sometimes difficult, but if companies treat employees of one country different in terms of discipline, it does create potential gaps in the compliance program. This can give certain countries a feeling that they can do whatever they want without the risk of punishment. Why has the Department of Justice reemphasized monitoring the investigations and ensuring compliance, a consistent application of discipline as a critical factor? In the FCPA Resource Guide 2nd edition, it added a new hallmark to the previously entitled 10 Hallmarks of an Effective Compliance Program. And parenthetically note, they are now just the hallmarks. This new hallmark added was one which has been around for some time, and it's root cause analysis. It is not new because it was subtly considered in the original FCPA Resource Guide back in 2012 and explicitly discussed since the original formulation of the evaluation of corporate compliance programs in February 2017. A root cause analysis is really diving into the gaps of a compliance program. What happened to allow this behavior to occur? It certainly is a deeper level than an investigation. Investigations are focused on who, what, when, where, why, and how. Root cause analysis is really digging into the program's policies and procedures that may have allowed this misconduct to occur to understand what was the overriding of controls or what were the gaps in the controls. It allows you to determine the gaps in your compliance program which need remediation. This leads to one of the overlooked uses of root cause analysis, which is part of a corporation's continuous monitoring and continuous improvement. One of the fundamental defects in many corporate compliance functions is they do not look adequately at their compliance program and to assess it to see that they are as effective as possible. Everyone understands that even the best compliance program will still have issues. It just happens. The DOJ has mandated that a CCO should constantly evaluate your compliance program by doing periodic assessments and systemic testing of transactions. This means not only looking at the policies themselves, but actually testing the transactions to make sure they are following the procedures that are laid out. The 2020 update required a compliance function to take on a more wide-ranging role around institutional justice and institutional fairness when it mandated that compliance confirm consistencies in the way that a compliance program is administered. Obviously, this is true in the realm of discipline and incentives, but also means fairness in the way investigations are handled and creating a speak-up culture. In other words, it all comes down to one word: consistency. This means compliance professionals have to be consistent in how they treat people, whether it's in Brazil or in the United States, because people are watching. They want to know that there's a process out there that's fair. This means the process is open and transparent. It is not an outcome-driven process. It is process-driven process. Consistent punishment, consistent corrective actions, and consistent disciplinary actions all should be incorporated as the cases arise. A CCO should enlist such allies as HR, the General Counsel, the Chief Financial Officer, Head of Internal Audit, and other executives co-equal to the CCO as heads for corporate disciplines. Cross-functional collaboration is critical because we all look at things a little bit differently. There should be coordination and collaboration among departments, yet there should be consistency from this level of senior management. A speak-up culture is critical as to a corporate culture because we ask people, if you see it, to say it. And as a CCO, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to protect them? And how are you going to make sure it doesn't happen again? People want to know the answers to all of these questions. All of this ties into consistency, as the compliance professional must demonstrate that they are focused on change It also mandates that the corporate compliance function will be focused on protecting them. Moreover, organizational justice cannot simply be hierarchical. This means the C-suite has to be obligated to the same standards as the person on the shop floor, and that the CCO really does have to be ready and empowered to investigate even the CEO if that's necessary. The focus on consistency is insightful and instructive as a key element of a best practices compliance program. Consistency forms the basis of both institutional justice and institutional fairness. That in turn facilitates a speak-up culture, which is the role a compliance department needs to focus on and foster. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, consistency is a key part of any compliance program, but when was the last time you thought about that as a CCO? 2, consistency forms the basis of both institutional justice and institutional fairness. And 3, and perhaps most importantly, consistency facilitates a speak-up culture, because if you're consistent in all of the above, people are going to be willing to raise their hands and speak up when they see something or even initiate a process improvement. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to thank you again for joining me for this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program around business ventures. And I hope you will join me for our next episode tomorrow. This podcast series on 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.